My name is Tom. I'm 58 years old. People say age makes you wiser, more patient, even forgiving. But if I'm honest, I don't know if that's true. I think age just makes you quieter. You learn to sit with things, to stop explaining yourself to people who've already decided who you are. I live in a small town just outside Chicago. Nothing fancy, just a two-bedroom house with a porch that creaks when you step on it wrong and a backyard that looks prettier than it has any right to. I planted a birch tree there when my daughter turned 13. It's taller than the roof now. She used to sit under it with her textbooks, her headphones on, her legs crossed like a grown-up, but her hair still in those messy pigtails. I used to watch from the kitchen window while boiling pasta. I was always boiling pasta. It was the only thing I knew how to cook without burning. Her name is Lily. She's 26 now. And for most of her life, it was just the two of us. My wife, her mother, died when Lily was 12. Cancer. The word feels too clean for what it really is. It was slow, bitter, cruel. Julie, my wife, was one of those people who made life feel lighter just by being in the room. You don't realize how much light someone holds until it's gone. And when she died, Lily and I were left with the echo of her. In the quiet halls, in the laundry left half folded, in the songs Julie used to hum while brushing her hair. After the funeral, I remember standing in the living room, still in the same suit, and Lily came up to me and said, "Daddy, who's going to take care of me now?" I didn't have an answer. Not a good one. But I said, "I will. I promise." And then I kept that promise for 16 years. I took a second job the week after the funeral. Drove nights, sometimes days too. I became the guy with the dark bags under his eyes and the thermos that never left his hand. I drove everything. Airport shuttles, wedding cars, even the occasional hearse. Irony, right? One day I drove a limo to a hotel ballroom, dropped off a bride and her father. He was in tears. I sat in the driver's seat and stared through the rearview mirror, thinking about a day that might come for me and Lily. She was so smart, so driven, honors classes, debate team. I made it to every parent-teacher conference. I was the dad in the crowd with grease under his nails and a button-down shirt that didn't quite fit anymore. But I was there. One night when she was 15, she came into the garage while I was changing the oil on the old Corolla. She leaned on the wall and said, "Dad, when I get married, I want a white wedding with real flowers, like a fairy tale." I remember smiling, wiping sweat off my forehead with an old towel. "Then you'll have it," I said. She laughed. "You always say yes too fast." But I didn't say yes too fast. I said it with full knowledge of what it would mean. I started saving right after that, quietly. $20 here, 50 there. Sometimes I skipped lunch and kept the cash. I drove an extra shift when I could. I kept a spreadsheet on my old laptop. Lily's Dream Wedding Fund. That was the actual name of the folder. No one else helped. No grandparents, no uncles or aunts. Just me. And honestly, I was proud of that. Over the years, Lily became my purpose, my compass. Every night when I dragged myself home and the house was dark, I'd peek into her room and see the soft glow of her reading lamp, her hand curled under her cheek, her mouth slightly open like when she was a baby. And I'd just exhale. That was enough for me. She grew up, got a scholarship, graduated with honors. She got a job in marketing, started dressing like someone important. I noticed she stopped picking up my calls as often, said she was busy. "You know how it is, Dad." I told myself it was normal. Kids pull away. That's what they do, right? They grow up, build their own lives. But sometimes I'd come home, sit on the edge of my bed, and wonder if I was starting to disappear. Then one day she called. Her voice was trembling with excitement. "Dad, I said yes. He proposed." My chest tightened. "Lily, that's wonderful," I said, and I meant it. She giggled. "And guess what? I want that white wedding, just like I told you." I looked at the dusty folder on my laptop. I hadn't opened it in a while, but it was there. Every cent I'd scraped together, every late shift, every missed birthday party or invitation I declined because I was working. "Yes," I said, "you'll have it." I didn't know then, standing in my garage with my phone to my ear and grease still on my hands, that this wedding would become the last time I would see my daughter the way I used to see her. The months that followed were a blur of appointments, invoices, and emails I didn't understand but responded to with, "Sure, no problem." Weddings have changed since I was young. Back then, you booked a church, got a dress, and served lasagna in a community hall. But Lily wanted more. Not in a selfish way, or maybe I just didn't see it then. She was excited, glowing. She sent me links to venues that looked like castles and Pinterest boards filled with blush roses and gold-trimmed dinnerware. "This one, Dad," she said during a video call, spinning her laptop around to show me a massive hall with chandeliers like icicles. "It looks like something from a movie." I nodded. "It's beautiful." I didn't ask how much. I didn't want to know. I met her fiancé 3 times before the wedding. His name was Brian. He had a good handshake, a perfect smile, and the kind of confidence that comes from not having been punched by life yet. He wore suits with names I couldn't pronounce and introduced himself as a consultant, which meant something vague but profitable. The first time we met, he called me sir. The second time, Tom. The third time, just nodded like I was the doorman. I told myself I was overthinking, that he was just nervous. Young people have different manners, but still, something sat sideways in me every time we spoke. Lily had changed too. She started keeping me at arm's length. Little things. A delay in replying to my texts. "Hey Dad, sorry, can't talk. We're meeting with the photographer." Or, "I meant to call you. Brian's parents are taking care of the rehearsal dinner. They want to keep it intimate." I blinked at that word. Intimate. Like I wasn't part of her inner circle anymore. I shrugged it off and focused on the checklist. Dress, paid in full, $4,200. Lace from Italy. Venue deposit, covered, $7,500. Flowers, photographer, makeup trial, all taken care of. I didn't keep track of the total. I just kept transferring money. I told myself this was the moment every father lives for. The big walk down the aisle, the proud tears, the grateful hug. A week before the wedding, I drove out to the venue, 2 hours away, just to make sure everything was on schedule. The manager was kind, smiled when I introduced myself. "Oh, you're the driver?" she asked. I paused. "I'm the father of the bride." Her smile changed, tightened. "Of course. My apologies." It wasn't the first time someone mistook me for hired help. Comes with the uniform, I guess. I still wore slacks and a button-down most days. Habit. But this one stung more than usual. At the rehearsal, Lily looked different, stiff. She avoided eye contact like I was someone who had shown up without being invited. We ran through the motions. Walk in, pause, smile, stand beside her. She looked stunning, even in a rehearsal dress. Everyone clapped politely. Afterwards, she pulled me aside. "Dad," she said, not unkindly, just carefully. "On the day of the wedding, just be there, okay? I don't want any speeches or emotional moments. Brian's parents have this very curated tone for the ceremony, and I don't want to mess it up." I laughed. "I wasn't planning on doing cartwheels, sweetheart." She didn't laugh. "Just don't say anything unnecessary," she said. That word again, unnecessary. I stood there holding a rolled-up copy of the ceremony program in one hand and my daughter's distance in the other. I didn't argue, I didn't ask, "What changed?" I just nodded and told her I understood. That night I drove home in silence. No radio, just the sound of the tires on pavement and the faint ache behind my ribs. The kind you get when something starts to slip through your fingers and you're not sure if you should try to catch it or let it fall. But one thing I knew, I would be there, in the front row, like I'd always been. The morning of the wedding arrived like a painting I wasn't part of. The sun was soft, filtered through mist. The grass at the venue was damp with dew, and the air smelled like lavender and champagne. I arrived early, and of course, I always do. That's one of the things Lily used to tease me for. "You show up half an hour early to everything, Dad. Even traffic fears you." I sat in the front row while staff scurried around like ants, placing petals, lighting candles, fluffing the hem of everything. Everyone had a headset. Everyone moved with purpose. Everyone but me. I was given a seat, a bottle of water, in silence. No one asked if I was doing okay. No one checked if I wanted to see my daughter before the ceremony. I wasn't even asked to walk her down the aisle. Brian's father took that role. Lily had said something vague on the phone the week before. He offered, and I thought it might be symbolic, new beginnings, etc. She said it like I was a chapter being closed, a symbol of the past, not the man who raised her. I told myself it was her day, that I'd let her have it her way, but when the music started, that slow piano piece I'd heard her hum since she was 16, something inside me went cold. The doors opened. There she was, my daughter, radiant, elegant, and arm in arm with someone who hadn't known her favorite cereal, or the sounds she made when she had nightmares, or the way she used to curl her legs under her on the couch and fall asleep on my shoulder. My hands trembled, just slightly. I locked them in my lap. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I watched. When they reached the altar, there were whispers, phones held discreetly, cameras flashing. And then, after the vows, after the ring exchange, after the kiss, the microphone came out. Brian's best man gave a toast. Lily stepped forward. Her dress shimmered like frost in the evening sun. She held the mic like she'd rehearsed this. I thought, maybe she'll thank me. Maybe there's still a part where she looks at me and remembers. She looked out at the guests and said, smiling, "Today is the happiest day of my life, and I'm so grateful to the people who shaped me into who I am, especially the man I now call my father. He's been present, constant, loving, not the one who drove me to school in an old car or embarrassed me with oil-stained jackets." There was a pause, then laughter. Not malicious, not cruel, just casual, warm laughter from people who didn't know what they were laughing at. But I did. And suddenly, every long night behind a steering wheel, every missed meal, every parent-teacher conference, every fever, every rent check split in half, all of it collapsed inside my chest like a house made of paper. I didn't flinch. I didn't shift. I just stood, gently, slowly. My knees cracked a little. I placed one hand on the back of the chair in front of me and rose without a sound. Nobody noticed at first. Then a couple of heads turned. I didn't look at her. She wasn't looking at me. I walked past the rows of chairs, past the center aisle lined with white petals I'd paid for, past the harpist, past the waiters carrying trays of champagne. I kept walking, out the side gate, through the lot, to my limo. Yes, my limo. It looked sharp in the evening light, polished black, chrome lines, dark-tinted glass, a quiet beast. I opened the door, slid inside, and closed it behind me. Then I reached for my phone, because while Lily had spent the past year preparing her wedding, I'd spent the past 3 months preparing something else entirely. The leather of the seat welcomed me like an old friend. Cool, familiar, solid. I sat in silence for a moment, letting the echo of her words settle. That ridiculous line, "Not the one who drove me to school in an old car." The guests had laughed. That was the part that stuck to my ribs. They laughed, as if the sacrifices, the grease under my nails, the skipped birthdays so she could have ballet shoes and school trips, as if all that was some kind of joke. But I wasn't angry, not in the way people expect. There was no storm inside me, no roaring fire or broken glass or curses under my breath, just stillness, like snow falling on a quiet field after midnight. I looked out the tinted window. The venue was behind me now, hidden by hedges and white balloons. I watched a young waiter sprint across the lawn, holding a bottle of champagne. His apron flapped behind him like a flag. Let her have her day, I thought. Let her have the applause, the dress, the speeches, the smiles that won't last. She chose her audience. Now I would choose mine. I pressed a button on the console, and the partition between the driver's seat and the back lowered with a smooth whir. "Joe," I said calmly, "take me to the office." Joe, a broad-shouldered man with a shaved head and a crisp uniform, gave me a glance in the mirror. "You sure?" he asked. "You don't want to—" "Just drive." He nodded and pulled away from the venue without another word. We turned onto the quiet road that led into the city. The late afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the pavement. My phone buzzed once, probably a wedding photo in the family group chat. I turned it face down. As we moved toward downtown, my thoughts didn't go to Lily. They went to Henry Takashi. Henry was the CEO of a luxury hotel chain. International, discreet, ruthless with standards. He'd flown in from Tokyo 2 weeks ago for our final meetings. 3 months ago, I'd begun negotiations to become the exclusive transportation partner for his company's West Coast expansion. Not as a driver. No. That life was behind me. I own the company now. A private fleet, 14 top-tier vehicles, hand-picked staff, black suits, etiquette training, silent, smooth, and spotless service, all run from a modest office tucked in a downtown high-rise. By the time we reached it, the sky was deep gold, kissing the edge of dusk. I stepped out of the limo and looked up at the building, steel and glass reflecting the sunset. I adjusted my cufflinks, straightened my jacket. Not to impress, just to remind myself that this was mine. I rode the elevator up to the 17th floor. When the doors opened, Henry was already seated in the glass conference room. He stood when he saw me. "You came," he said, a trace of surprise in his voice. "I said I would," I replied. "Punctuality runs in the family." I sat. He slid the folder across the table. The contract, thick, bound, final. "Everything's been approved," he said. "2-year deal. Your fleet, your terms. 1 million." I picked up the pen and signed. There was no trembling this time, no second thoughts. With every stroke of ink, I felt further from that wedding, from that microphone, from that daughter who once held my hand crossing the street and now pretended I was invisible. When I finished, I handed the pen back to Henry. He smiled. "You're building something remarkable." I nodded. "Thank you." He extended his hand. I shook it. And just like that, I had stepped into another life. I walked back to the elevator, alone. When the doors closed, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Still the same man. Same eyes, same hands, but heavier now. Not with burden, with clarity. Because the girl in white might have erased me from her speech. But I had rewritten my own ending. The elevator ride down was quiet, but not empty. It was the kind of quiet that follows a storm. Not destruction, just rearrangement. Like everything had shifted a few inches to the side. And now the world looked different. Cleaner, simpler. When I stepped outside, the air smelled like new rain, even though it hadn't fallen yet. The city had that shimmer it gets in the early evening. Lights just beginning to bloom in office windows, and traffic starting to hum like a distant drumbeat. Joe stood by the car, already holding the rear door open. I paused before getting in. "You know," I said, "when I first started, I was terrified of men like him." Joe raised an eyebrow. "Men like who?" "Takashi, suits, schedules, polished shoes." I thought they'd see right through me. Call me out as just a tired man behind the wheel. Joe grinned. "You built a company while driving strangers around. That's not tired. That's legendary." I smiled back. Small, but real. I got in. The car eased into traffic like it belonged there, like it ruled the lane. No honking, no rush, just presence. As we moved through the city, I looked at the digital tablet mounted in front of me. Our custom app, real-time metrics, bookings, vehicle locations, driver ratings. In 3 months, our fleet would expand into 3 more cities. By the end of the year, if projections held, we'd double. I hadn't done it for recognition, or even money really. I'd done it to own something no one could take from me, to never again be made small in a room full of people who thought driver meant invisible. But yes, the money came too. By the time we reached my condo, a message buzzed onto my phone. The transfer was complete. $1 million deposited. Not a fantasy, not a maybe. Real. I sat with it for a moment. This wasn't a lottery win. It wasn't luck. It was every 4 a.m. start. Every shift I worked with the flu because Lily wanted a summer camp I couldn't afford. Every time I smiled through someone slamming a door in my face or treating me like I was part of the seat cushion. Every single time I said yes when I wanted to say I'm tired. And now I had a number that wouldn't fade. A legacy that wouldn't vanish with a toast or a wedding dress. My phone buzzed again. Another message. This one from Lily. "Dad, about today, I think there was a misunderstanding. I didn't mean it like that. I stared at the screen. The words should have stung. They didn't. She had made her choice, not just in words, but in tone, in posture, in public. She hadn't looked at me when I left, hadn't paused, hadn't run after me. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my photos and scrolled. Past pictures of her birthdays, scraped knees, piano recitals. I stopped on one from 12 years ago, a gas station. She was 14, sitting in the front seat, holding a slushie as big as her head. Grinning, it was late. We were on a road trip. She had her feet on the dash, my coat around her shoulders. That girl, I missed her. Not the bride from today, the kid who thought I was Superman. But I also knew some roads don't loop back. And sometimes, silence is the loudest thing a man can say. A week passed. I didn't reach out. I didn't explain myself. I went back to work. Every morning I put on my blazer, adjusted the cufflinks Lily once bought me for a birthday when she was 16, cheap but thoughtful. She giggled that day, and got behind the wheel of my finest sedan. My drivers wore uniforms now, polished shoes, name tags. We didn't just drive, we represented something. Precision, discretion, power wrapped in restraint. Every ride was a meeting, a connection, a new opportunity. People notice me now, not because I demanded it, but because I moved like someone who didn't need to ask. But silence has a strange weight. It settles quietly, then presses like gravity. One night sitting in my office, the walls painted deep navy, the desk custom oak. I opened my inbox. There it was. Another email from Lily, short. Hey Dad, can we talk? I didn't mean to hurt you at the wedding. Please call me. No, I'm sorry. No mention of what she did, just what she meant. Intentions are like shadows, always changing with the light. But actions, they leave footprints. I didn't reply. A few more days passed. Then another message. Dad, I'm really sorry about the wedding. It's been on my mind. Can we meet for lunch? Lunch? Like we were colleagues. Like I hadn't brushed her teeth for her when she had the flu. Like I hadn't missed sleep for half her childhood so she could attend a school with better books, better teachers, better hallways. I closed the message. A week after that, a text, just one line. Can you help with the housing payment this month? And there it was. Not an apology, a request, as if I'd been waiting for the chance to prove myself useful again. I took my time. Then I opened the drawer beside me, pulled out a copy of the wedding invoice. The banquet, the gown, the flowers, the live band, the cake she'd asked for, flown in from New York, all paid in full, every cent. I scanned it, added one sentence in the email body. The wedding bill is closed, and hit send. No anger, no sarcasm, just a receipt for both of us. That night I sat alone by the window in my high-rise. The skyline flickered, the hum of the city like a steady heartbeat. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel bitter. I just felt free. Not from her, but from the need to be seen. Because I knew who I was. And she, well, maybe one day she'd look back and realize what she threw away for applause that didn't last more than a dinner. But that was her road now, not mine. This morning the air was clean. One of those rare days when the city hadn't yet remembered to choke on its own ambition. I was up before the sun, old habit, pressed shirt, smooth lapels, shoes that caught the morning light just right. I slid the keys into my palm. The kind of car you don't drive, you command. A midnight black Maybach, polished until the chrome reflected the skyline. I pulled into the private terminal of the airport. Quiet, no chaos, just leather chairs, hushed suits, and engines humming in the distance. My client stepped out, suitcase in hand, tailored coat slung over one shoulder. He paused at the door before sliding into the back seat. Nice ride, he said, running a hand over the wood trim. You don't see many of these in town. I nodded, catching his eye in the rearview mirror. Cool setup, he added. You the owner? I smiled. I am, he chuckled. Figures. You've got that control vibe, like you've got everything handled. I didn't answer. Not because I had nothing to say, but because sometimes silence is the most powerful language. We drove. The city passed by. Glass towers, blinking signs, families crossing streets, lives intersecting for moments before parting forever. At a red light, my phone buzzed. I glanced down. Another message. From Lily. I miss you. I put the phone back down. The light turned green. We moved forward. Not fast, not with drama, just steady. Because that's what I'd become. Not a forgotten father, not a man defined by someone else's spotlight, but a quiet storm that learned how to hold the wheel through grief, betrayal, and the hollow echo of applause meant for someone else. I don't wear bitterness on my sleeve. I wear a watch that ticks only forward. Because life didn't end when she erased me from that speech. It began. Now when people say my name, they don't follow it with just a driver. They say it with pause, with respect. And when I look in the mirror, I see a man who raised a daughter with everything he had. And when she chose the illusion of grandeur over the truth of love, he didn't fall apart. He stood taller. He didn't make a scene. He made a life. And in the end, maybe that's the real fairy tale. Not the one with the white dress, but the one where the king gets back in his carriage and drives off alone into something better.